Okay, so basically all we're talking about is the other category. We have AR verbs, not because of what they mean, but because of how they're spelled in their infinitive form. Estudiar, conversar, comunicar, practicar, jugar, etc. Vivir, though, isn't conjugated like those verbs because it's spelled differently. Its ending is different. Vivir has an AR ending, so it's in a different category. ¿Dónde viven nuestras familias? La familia de Bella vive en Nueva York. ¿No? I don't know if it's la ciudad. ¿Es la ciudad? No, I'll just do New York. Muy bien. La familia de Pablo vive en Philadelphia. Philly? Muy bien. Más específico. La familia de Felipa vive en New Jersey. Estoy tras mi memoria. Y la familia de Margarita también vive en New Jersey, ¿no? Entonces, todos los verbos vive, vienen del verbo vivir, ¿no? Entonces, hoy vamos a hablar de los otros verbos, la otra categoría. Ellos aprenden la computación. So even if you've seen, I know how to conjugate verbs. I know the difference between an AR verb and an ER IR verb. Even if you have new vocab to learn. And speaking of learning, ¿cómo se dice aprenden?
Practice? No.
Kind of.
To build?
Close. It's everything you do that it's involved with what? Practicing or building what's happening in your brain, you're learning. Aprender, aprenden, they're learning. So I've mentioned before, when we were talking about AR verbs, in the book, all of these verbs on page 73, they're not like considered chapter vocab, but you are expected to know them. So, in order to learn these verbs, you might want to go on Quizlet and create some flashcards for the verbs. But don't put them in their infinitive form. Conjugate the verbs in the flashcards. For example, one side could be the verb. You could just use the two forms. To, aprender, and then on the other side, aprendes. And you would want to put in what it means. You learn. ¿Ok? Para practicar el vocabulario y la gramática. Y ustedes que aprenden, aprendemos a hablar español. So in the previous one, we had ellos aprenden. Y tú, actually on your paper, I didn't change it to ustedes. So you'll need to change it to ustedes. Why? Because the two form is different. Ustedes is aprenden. Just like the AR verbs, is there any difference in spelling? When the subject is they and y'all, is there any difference in our verb endings? No, they're exactly the same. So those subject pronouns tell us what the ending is. See?
I think you're using the wrong paper.
Oh, what's your paper? Aprendemos a hablar español. So in the question, I need the word ustedes because it looks just like ellos. But notice I didn't include nosotros here. Because why? Why don't I not have to write like mis compañeros y yo or nosotros? Why do I not have to include the subject with this verb, but with this verb I needed to include the subject? What do you think, Juliana?
Well, I was going to say if it's already conjugate, like if the verb's already conjugated, you know, like by the ending he was talking about.
Sí, correcto. Muy bien. So it's not necessary because amos can only refer to whom? Nosotros, right. It can't be confused for anything else. However, I was just saying, ellos, ustedes, the ending can go either way. It could be they, it could be y'all, it could be Paco y Julio. we don't know. So we need those subjects, but with nosotros, we don't need them. And we don't need them with yo either. On your paper, you have yo. Yo's optional. And what would be the yo form of? Aprendo. Muy bien. So the yo form for AR verbs is the same as the IR verbs. Aprendo. ¿Y cómo se dice aprendo? I what? I learn. I'm learning too. And aprender, this verb, when we learn to do something, is followed by an a. Aprendo a hablar español. So you know on the super site sometimes you put in the answer, but you still get it wrong because you were supposed to put in this little tiny letter or word, and you weren't sure about that, and it wasn't even provided. That's because they expect you to know this, that aprender is followed by an a. So if you get it wrong on the super site, try throwing in an a in the sentence, and you'll get it right. Okay? It has to be used with a. It's just a rule. Aprendemos a español. ¿Y qué hace la abuela? Ella bebe el vino. No? So what's this question asking? ¿Qué hace? What is she doing? Right. So this isn't an AR verb. This is actually an ER IR verb. It falls in this category, but it's not presented on page 73 because it's irregular in the O form, and we'll look at that later on. ¿Qué hace la abuela? Ella bebe el vino. So what does that mean? Ella bebe el vino. She what? She drinks wine, or she is drinking. Either way is correct. Bebe means she drinks, and also toma. We had the verb tomar in la lección 2. Tomar also means to drink. It's just more applicable to like tomar una siesta, to take a nap, or tomar clases, to take classes, or tomar un examen, to take a test. But tomar can also mean to drink. It can be used for lots of different things. Bebe is only for drinking. And they just use bebe more in Spain, I feel like, and the rest of Latin America than they use toma. Either way, what do these verbs have in common grammatically? Third person. Ella is the subject, so our ending is A if it's an AR verb, E if it's an ER verb. No? Okay, otro ejemplo. ¿Y tú qué bebes? Bebes. No? ¿Qué bebes? What's this asking? What do you... actually, just what? Why is too psychological. Just kidding. ¿Qué? What do you drink? Yo bebo el vino también. No me gusta cerveza. Bebo cerveza, pero prefiero vino. Yo bebo. Otra vez, la forma de yo, that O, we know for AR verbs, ER IR verbs, 2 for 1 special. If it ends in O, you're talking about who? Yo, I, you know, yo hablo español, yo estudio español, y yo bebo agua, vino, etc. Pero yo no debo beber mucho vino. No, una exageración. Yo no debo beber mucho vino. So normally I focus on the meaning, but I just want to point out that we're talking about who still? Yo. But my verb is different. What is this saying? Now let's focus on the meaning. What is this saying? Debo beber. Should. Muy bien. Excelente. So the verb deber, which is kind of a dyslexic nightmare here. Deber is like beber, but their meaning is completely different. Deber, debemos, tú debes, yo debo, means should. So it always needs to be followed by another infinitive, like you should study more. Tú debes estudiar más. Or, yo debo estudiar más. Or, no debo beber mucho vino. So this is saying what? I shouldn't drink a lot of wine. No? Un desastre. This is a little exaggerated, but it's hard on Google Images to match up with everything. ¿Qué hacen los niños? So what's this question asking again? What are they doing, right? The children, los niños. ER verb ends in the letter N. When we see that N, we know the verb is plural. Because remember, S makes nouns and adjectives and articles plural, but S on a verb means who's doing the action. Bebes, hablas. When you hear that S sound, that's referring to who? To, right? ¿Hablas español? ¿Cómo estás? ¿No? ¿Bebes agua todos los días? Okay, so when verbs are plural, they're either nosotros, hemos, or en. On or en, depending on what type of verb it is. Ellos comparten un libro. What are they doing? ¿Cómo se dice comparten? This is something children have a very hard time doing. Sharing. Muy bien. Comparten un libro. Comparten. So you want to study what these verbs mean as well. ¿Y los hermanos comparten? No. Ellos no comparten su juguete. So what's this saying? ¿Cómo se dice hermanos? Yeah, or in this context, it can also mean what? Because it's siblings. Right, exactly. It can mean siblings as well because we obviously have a girl and a boy. ¿Comparten? ¿Y los hermanos comparten? What am I asking? Are they sharing? So I just want to recycle what we talked about with questions. In English, we have the concept of are they or is he. But in Spanish, we don't have that. So we know it's a question with this upside down question mark when we read it, and then when we say it, ¿y los hermanos comparten? And we raise the intonation of our voice. In Spanish, it's not necessary to have are they. That's what the upside down question mark is for. No comparten su juguete. Siblings have the hardest time sharing. No comparten su juguete. So just to review, we've already seen this with AR verbs. All verbs from this point forward, this is all we're going to be doing when we encounter verbs in Spanish this semester, next semester, and all the semesters beyond. Whether it's present tense, talking about what we're doing right now, or in 102, past tense, or 201, we're going to learn like 5 different types of conjugations, but they all build on this concept where you have this stem, and that's our vocab. But then our ending tells us who's doing the action. If you see en, you know it's plural, or amos, you know it's plural, but if you see o, you know it's yo, or es, it's two. So that ending tells us who's doing the action. And also, and we'll see this in 102, when the action was completed. And we'll learn about how to speak in the past tense. Chicos, so the ER endings obviously have a lot of what letter? The letter E, right? And the only reason on your paper I have usted, él, and ella, even though the ending is E, because the meaning is different. Usted, even though the ending of the verb is the same as él and ella, the meaning is different. Usted is actually what? It's not he or she, it's, what's usted? You have second person, so we took, actually, so remember when we look at this chart, if you will, with verb conjugations, we have our first person forms, right? And when we speak in first person, who are we talking about? If it's singular, we're talking about ourselves. If it's plural, it's we. You know, in English class, you need to write a paragraph in first person, blah, blah, blah. Or you shouldn't use second person. And second person, singular, is two if it's one person, and that has to do with formality, right? Because usted is also second person. But you don't need to use tú or usted when you say ¿cómo está? When I look at you and I say ¿cómo está? What form am I using with you? Tú or usted? When I say ¿cómo está? Usted. And you can hear it because I'm not saying ¿cómo estás? Or escribe versus escribe. So just the sound of the ending indicates formality, but both of these are second person. Second person plural in Spain is es or is for an ER IR verb, but in the rest of Latin America, ustedes is y'all. That's our second person plural. These have to do with geography. These have to do with culture and familiarity and formality. And then we have el and ella, and el simply means what? What would we use with Pablo? El or ella? El. But with Carla, we'd use ella. If we've already know who we're talking about, we already know we're talking about Carla, then we would use ella, ellos, and ellas, if it's all girls. But this is third person. These two are third person. So even though it's redundant to write these over and over again, it's very important to understand the difference and distinguish them from each other. Nosotros, though, going back to nosotros or nosotras, for an ER verb is hemos. Chicos, tengan cuidado. Nosotros, for an IR verb, like the verb escribir or compartir, is hemos. So all of these verbs on page 73 on the super site, if these are your answers for nosotros, abrimos versus aprendemos. Hemos versus hemos. So it's important to note that as well. Just like vosotros in Spain, we also have hemos, which isn't really that hard to remember because it's an IR verb. Vivimos en los Estados Unidos. Okay, and they're very similar to the AR endings. How? What's a similarity that we've talked about, and I want to reiterate, with how verbs are conjugated in the present tense in Spanish? If you're talking about yourself, it's an AR verb, ER verb, IR verb. The verb will end in what letter? O, exactly. When you hear O, you know you're talking about yourself. What do all the two forms have in common? The letter S, exactly. So it's easy to remember because you're building on what you know. But again, I want to clarify. Putting the letter S on a verb, does that make it plural? Does that mean more than one person? No. That's only with nouns and adjectives and articles. The letter S means you, and that's one person. And then what else is similar with AR verbs and ER IR verbs? Because this pattern, these similarities, we're going to see this consistently throughout verb conjugations. For example, MOS. When you hear MOS on a verb, you know it's probably talking about who? Nosotros, right? Hablamos. Even with a verb you've never seen before, mantenemos or something like that. And when you hear MOS, and this applies to past tense and other concepts we're going to learn, commands, subjunctive, and so on. And then, por último, we have the letter N. And remember, these forms are plural. These are our plural forms. This means we're referring to multiple people. No vamos a hacer esta actividad porque es muy aburrida.